Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Searchcast. I'm Shane Hampson, and with me today I got Ryan Collins. Ryan, tell the people who you are.
Yeah, so my name's Ryan. I'm currently an SEO strategist at Go Fish Digital. A little about me, I come from like an academic background. My dream, I guess, was to be a film studies professor. Always grew up watching like movies, especially like horror films, sci-fi movies. I went to Indiana University, got my was pursuing my PhD there. Like that was kind of my goal with film studies. But then I made the pivot to like social science studies, like communications research, right? But ultimately, I ended up like moving into like SEO. I was really exploring different career paths outside of academia by the end. But I'm happy that I am in SEO. I think it really builds well with a lot of different like interests and skills that I have, and happy to talk more about that.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's definitely the reason we want to have this chat. I think big part of the industry that people still SEO is becoming more mainstream. You go to like an average, you go to a party or something, like, what do you do? And you say SEO, and some people are like, oh, that's like Google and stuff, right? It's like, okay, yeah, kind of. Yeah, that's what it is. I think it's so interesting how people got their backgrounds in there. So we'll definitely get into that. My icebreaker question for you, though, Ryan, is
Yes.
which TV show, movie character, or book character would be a great SEO or a terrible SEO, and why?
Um, what is that guy from? Trying to think. It's like that ad show that was on AMC for a
Mad Men?
while. Yeah, that guy from Mad Men. I'm just trying to think. I feel like he'd be pretty good SEO. I would think anyone that's really good at like searching things, really interested in just like that sort of thing. But that's a good question, actually. Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't have a perfect answer to that though.
he's definitely been a popular answer. A lot of people say Michael Scott would be a terrible SEO. So it's a mixed bag for sure.
Yeah, Michael Scott would probably use Bing or something like that.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, cool. Let's get into it a little bit. So,
Yeah.
yeah, you definitely have a cool background. Your
Mhm.
LinkedIn shows PhD, so that's epic. There's not obviously a PhD in SEO necessarily, but you touched on it a little
Yeah.
bit. But like, how did you before you got into SEO? What was the career path goal? Where were you looking to move towards? And then how did you find SEO?
Yeah, so like more context, like my BA, my bachelor's, it was in film production, media production. I was really interested in that. Really want to work in like a film studio, maybe even like on a television set. But I was in DFW, so it wasn't really like the best really option for me. I did some like wedding photography. I'm really interested in photography at the time, so that was really cool. But in hindsight, I probably should have made a website and maybe could have done some SEO work back in the day. That would have been a great experience in hindsight. But I eventually wanted to become a film professor, really interested in just being in the classroom, education, teaching, really enjoyed that, especially like film history. My BA, I had two BAs, one is also in history. So that's kind of why I kind of went down the academic path. Really thought film studies was for me. But yeah, I had like two kids at the time and we eventually had like three, so it just really wasn't the best like for a family in terms of like just career wise, and just like the stress of it was tough. Stipend was low, super competitive in the academic job market. So I knew I at least wanted to finish my PhD. I just knew I needed to keep some my options open. So I used like the last year to really kind of explore. I looked at like UX, data science, but I ultimately fell into SEO, just through informational interviews, talking to people who are just in the that were in the field that I was interested in, but they had a lot of things I was thinking with. And one of those was this idea of like SEO really means like creativity, but also like this technical like aspect of it and like problem solving. So it like uses both parts of your brain. So it wasn't just like all creative, it wasn't all technical, which data science, I just wasn't super great at math, like statistics. SEO is like a good like middle ground, and I could still kind of do technical work, but not feel like I had to get too far in inferential statistics or something like that. So I think I felt like my strengths were in a good spot.
Do you think SEO is more art or science?
Again, it's a bit of both. I mean, I think it depends who you talk to too. I mean, like Google, I have a feeling they think of it more of a science. But I mean, ideally, you think like good content, like quality content ranks. So there's that like creativity, quality, like there's a certain element of that. But I mean, when I talk to other SEOs, like they're really like smart and like creative. So I think it uses part of your brain that you have to like come up with different like to solve different problems. And I think that is the creative part of it. It's not necessarily like creating content which makes it creative. I think it's just like how you solve problems and different ways you go about it is creative.
Yeah, I think my answer is the classic SEO answer for everything. It depends, right?
Yes.
Depends on the project that you're working on and what the task is. But yeah, you're right. You hit it spot on. It definitely uses both sides of your brains, which I love, and people are like, well, is SEO a good career for me. And the one question I always ask them is like, are you kind of person that if you're doing a puzzle, the best part for you is putting the last piece in and it's done forever? Or do you really enjoy the journey of getting to the last piece? Because if you enjoy the journey of getting to the last piece, you're going to love
Mhm.
SEO because SEO's never said it. It's never done. There's always
Yeah.
something to be going on. I did a keynote at a convention last year, and my hot topic was basically SEO needs to be branded to OSEO, ongoing search engine optimization.
Mhm.
Will oftentimes think it's like set it and forget it, right? And
Yeah.
it's really not. So definitely aligned with you there. So okay, so you got to you went through some interviews and kind of
Mhm.
like it was like a perfect kind of storm. When was this? How long ago was that?
Yeah, so man, I have to do the math here. So I think it was around like 2020, 2021. Like I think my first like foray, I guess, in SEO is like I actually opened up one of those SEO for Dummies books. Like I just really want to know like what it was. Because honestly, I just thought it was kind of a scam, to be honest with you. Like when I read about it, I was like, because I always get emails about people wanting like backlinks or SEO. I'm like, why would I want to join this field? Talk to people through these informational interviews. It turns out it's legit, and like people make good money. They have a living doing this, and I was like, okay, this is really cool. But yeah, like it started through like SEO for Dummies, just a book I found, and then just did little like different projects, trying to get more experience through different realms. I worked at this PR company doing a little bit of like work here and there, got access to like their Google Analytics profile. I was like, oh man, this is really interesting. Like these different like parts of the profile, what it does. And then I made my own website just to kind of test it out. So like I feel like a lot of SEO is just kind of trying things out, experimenting. And I think that's the more of that I did, the more like I really was into it. But yeah, like I remember like when I was like exploring careers, like I made a website, but I learned like my favorite part of that was like making the website and all the things around it. And then like when I search my name, like that's cool. I'm seeing it more higher up in Google. Like this is neat. So I think it's like you find along the way about these things that you enjoy and what you don't enjoy. But yeah, that's kind of like how it came to be, like how I guess fell into that. Because I felt like I was kind of indecisive, but once I felt like I know I want to do SEO, it made it like so much easier.
Yeah, SEO for Dummies is a great book. If you look right back there, I got it on my shelf. Actually, Bruce Clay, he wrote the book, and he
Mhm.
actually signed that one for me. So that was like
Oh wow.
one of my SEO highlights of my career. It was pretty fun. Shout out to Bruce Clay, awesome guy. Yeah, so I think going back to the art and science thing a little bit too, what you said kind of triggered a thought. Like I think the technical side of SEO is definitely more science, right?
Mhm.
Like
Yeah,
that's
for sure.
it's pretty black and white essentially. But
Yeah.
if you're a content person or a digital PR person or a PR person, then yeah, I think it's a lot more art that goes into that side of
Mhm.
things too. So definitely agree there. So you got into like just a kind of like post pandemic ish area or
Yeah.
timeline. How has SEO changed in that 3 4 years since then?
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm trying to think because it was 2020 21. So like when I joined, the first company I joined was like Cherokee. This is like 2021. I was doing a lot of like brand reputation management at the time.
Hmm.
So a lot of it was helping like companies like that. Let's say if they want you search up a company name, you like want a very positive like search result page. But yeah, I know it was around like I think it was a core update. I think it was either in 2022 or 2023. I feel like there were a lot of things like rapidly changing, just the ways like how SERPs even look now, and just like I think when I first started, like I don't think AI was really like a big thing yet. But it seems like in the past year or two, like AI is just everywhere. Like in my workflow, like ChatGPT, I use it. I know at GoFish they're very pro like using AI assisted tools for different things. I know our website talks a little more about it. But yeah, like it's just like everywhere now. And I think you just have to like adjust accordingly. AI overviews to me is like a very like different thing than when I started to now. Like I think there's good and bad to that. But yeah, it's definitely interesting nonetheless. Yeah, I think a lot of it is just yeah, there's a lot that's happening. I
Yeah,
can't like put the specific thing, but I just know like AI has definitely made things like drastically different, I would say.
yeah, we actually got a similar start in our careers. I mean, I started in 2012, but I also
Hmm.
started doing reputation management. And back then,
Yeah.
it wasn't so much review marketing like it is today with like just trying to get more reviews on the different profiles and directories out there. But
Mhm.
back then, it was like reverse SEO. So there was like websites like Ripoff Report and Piss Consumer that
Mhm.
aren't really around anymore with like ranking prowess, but they used to be really sticky because back then PageRank was still a thing. So,
Mhm.
PageRank was like 0 to 10. And, I remember I'll tell people like Ripoff Report has a PageRank of 8 right? And Disneyland's like a 7, and like Pizza Hut's like an 8, right? So it's really sticky,
Yeah.
and it was just really good SEO in the worst possible way. They would write this like hellacious headline that was all bold, like, "Oh, X company is a scam or a ripoff," and then
Yeah.
someone Googling the brand, they'd obviously click on it, right? And then they would email the owner of the company like, "Hey, you just let you know that there's,
Mhm.
someone said that you're a scam," but they
Yeah.
would never remove the article. So they had this whole model where they would, reach out to the business owner, get them to
Mhm.
pay for like a mediator session, and
Oh,
basically if they paid, they got this little badge on it that said, "Oh, this was mediated." But they would never take it off, so it's still stuck there regardless. So when I got in the industry, I was trying to like write micro blogs and social media accounts to like push that down off of the first page.
yeah.
So yeah, it's funny. We
You
got
know,
a very similar career, start to our SEO careers in that way.
yeah, no, that, and it wasn't even something thought that was an option. Like I was like, people do this as a job. So like they just switched her. Yeah, so it was a really great experience. Just being, I think like the first place that you can get like working like with SEOs, I think is like the most benefit you can get, because it's just like being in those like internal chat channels, like learning like what problems people are solving. And I think that's what I liked about my first job, like at Terakeet, was that it was like an agency consulting type place. So I get to expose like different industries, different types of areas of SEO. And I feel like that's always important to at least kind of understand what's out there and kind of get a taste of it. And I think for most people, they might start at agency and then kind of go to like in house as well. But yeah, it's
And shout out to them too, right? I mean, it's SEO jobs are oftentimes hard to get if you don't have experience. So the fact that they
mhm,
recognize that you were a sharp guy,
yeah.
willing to learn, and so shout out to them. That's awesome. I
Mhm,
hope more companies can kind of factor that in, right? Look at the success story that you are. But going back to the timeline, yeah, that was a crazy time. You came in 2021, 2022, and yeah, Chat GPT wasn't a massive thing
mhm,
publicly yet, but I remember that timeline very well. When I was at my last job, it was a franchise
mhm,
organization, and I had like 19 brands in North America and 3,500 franchise owners I was
yeah.
responsible for. ChatGPT comes on the scene, and they're like, "Hey, we don't need SEO anymore. We're just going to use ChatGPT for everything." And I was like, "Holy
Jeez.
crap, what is going on?" And then remember this very specifically,
Mhm,
November of 2022, Google, you remember it probably, threw gas on the fire, and they were like, "You know what? As long as content's helpful, we don't care how it was created, human, AI, whatever." And it's
yeah.
like, what are you guys talking about? Like, you guys have always been against this. This is insane. And then 3 weeks later, December of 2022, they updated EAT to EEAT, and they put experience in there, which
Mhm.
effectively weeds out content that doesn't have firsthand experience, which is LLMs. So yeah, that was a crazy time, and ever since then, it just every year, just more AI, more AI, more AI. So yeah, you came in at a fascinating time.
Yeah, well, on top of that, with COVID too, like just like in a way, I guess it was good with like I guess remote work, because I feel like I don't know if a lot of FCOs working like remotely, but like to me that opened up a lot of doors for me, like because I was in Indiana at the time, and I was able to like move down to like San Antonio where I'm at now, like because of remote work. So it's definitely a plus.
Absolutely. Oh, so you're a Texan too. I'm in Dallas.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I'm from Fort Worth originally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember you did that DFW. Right. So you came in, a couple years ago. I think, SEO people that are coming in today's world have just a great advantage and opportunity in front of them because there's a lot of resources that weren't always there, right? There's still no college degree for it for SEO. It's being taught at universities, at least classes, which is amazing. But, kind of walk me through. You mentioned SEO for Dummies as a resource that you used when you first got into the game. What are some of the other sources, free resources out there that people could tap into if they're looking to get into SEO?
Yeah, so I would really kind of break it down. Like, there's like books. I mean, there's like websites you could look at, just other people you can rely on to kind of get some ideas. I guess there's also like Google themselves, like they have a pretty extensive like documentation. But yeah, I would just really get your hands on anything you can. Like I mentioned, SEO for Dummies is good. I like this book, Product Led SEO by Eli Schwartz. I was thinking like that's really good. Like books that are kind of more around a central subject or some like topic in SEO, I feel like there's not enough of that on. So things like that, websites, Backlinko is pretty well known. They're recently got bought out by SEMrush, I think a year or so back. But yeah, they're a great resource. Things like just any news you can find, like Search Engine Journal, Search Engine Land, and then I guess just really being around people that really know what they're talking about and have experience, and just learning how they talk about SEO and the problems they're trying to solve. Like because like any type of like anything you can read and staying up to date really can help you, just especially if you work with clients or just internally their team, just so you know what you're talking about and know what's really the best plan forward. So yeah, really, there is a lot out there, and I think it's just a matter of parsing through, like, making sure that it's like quality information and making sure you're not reading an article from like 2017 or something
Yeah.
about how to do SEO or something like that. So just making sure like that's like top of mind.
Yeah, I think you covered a wide array, and totally agree there. I think Moz is another good one. They still have really good resources, but
Mhm.
yeah, there's just so many ways you can learn now, and it's such a good time to get into SEO for sure. You know, the next part, yeah, I think is a little bit debated. I think there's three pillars of SEO: content, technical, offsite.
Mhm.
Every organization, or they have their own philosophy on that. Out of
Mhm.
those three, which one do you tend to like favor or lean into the most?
I mean, to use another analogy or metaphor, like I like to think of like technical and like content as like it's like a house, or you have your foundation, your technical foundation. Like if you don't have that, then it's hard to like build a house on it. I mean, I'm always kind of like, maybe I'm just biased, like leaning toward technical just to have that foundation in place, making sure like your site isn't broken before you even try to release anything or release content. But if like in terms of like growth, like trying to get to like the next level to really try to build your brand, like you need content. So like depends how you like what's the most important part of the process. Like without good tech SEO, I think it's hard to have good content SEO. But yeah, so and off page, like honestly, I don't have as much experience in. I need a little bit more. I feel like off page SEO is definitely a little more like fraught with more discussion and like debate.
100%.
But it makes sense though, like why off page SEO is important. Like it's kind of part of Google and why like it came to be. Like again, like I guess the metaphor of like a library or like citations. Like you think of like backlinks as like citations. If you look at an academic article and like there's no citations, you're like, why would I read this? Like, why is this important? Like, but if you saw if you had read an article, there's like 1,000 citations, you're like, this is probably a decent article and I should read this. I feel like in like Google and these search engines are definitely looking at backlinks like as a citation, like that they make sense. And that's why sites like New York Times and all these other big ones do well because people know them and people cite them. So it makes sense why they would rank.
Yeah, I think that's something that people forget. It's called the World Wide Web, right? Because all the search engines use spiders to crawl every page. And you're right.
Mhm.
I think that's a great analogy with building a house on technical. Then your content needs to be on that foundation to really grow. But without technical SEO, Google's not going to find those pages that have
Yeah, so
good or
it's
may not have good content.
a mixed
Yeah,
bag, but
yeah, I like you. I also like the analogy going back to academia with the citations because, yeah, if it doesn't have citations listed, you're like, well, this is just an editorial piece. Then this is just someone's opinion, right? There's no validation there. So yeah, I think that's spot on. But I think within those three pillars, it's a overview, but then each one gets a little deeper. And I know that on
mhm.
technical, you're learning more, like you do more of the coding backend stuff. You kind of that's where you're seeing the future going.
A little bit. Like I'm really interested in like the crawling part, the indexing part, like how Google like discovers content. I always feel like I'm always discovering more like JavaScript issues where people like really like JavaScript, but it can cause like problems where Google can't really discover that content, or maybe they're not putting the right HTML. So yeah, like I don't know about I'm interested in coding, but I think I one of the reasons why I liked SEO is that you don't have to be like a coding whiz. You just have to have a good understanding of like like programming languages and like how they work and like understanding like and even like HTML. Like it's not, some people say it's not a programming language, but it's still a good like scripting language to learn. So yeah, just having a knowledge of that helps, and that's what I think is important. Like so like I think as my career develops, like I definitely want to like upskill in like JavaScript and making sure I'm as skilled as knowledgeable as possible. Yeah, I would say just when it comes to technical, like crawling, indexing, early like Screaming Frog, things like that. So yeah, just like those parts of the skills that I think I tend to use quite often.
Yeah, I think the indexation is the number one reason why SEO things fail, right? You audit any site, and that's one of the first things you're looking at, right? It's like Google Search Console access and like what's getting
Mhm.
discovered and not indexed, or crawled and not discovered. And yeah, there's just so much low hanging fruit on most sites that you get your hands on. It's just like, yeah, these are orphan pages. Google can't find them.
Yeah, like well, and I think like indexing too is like part of like user experience, and I don't think really people talk about that as much. But the idea that like how is Google finding this content? Like it should be like in a natural way. Like is your content like deep in the site? Like I usually try to ask clients like if their page is like not being indexed or like it's hard to find. Like so like can you walk me through like how you would find this? Like if you're to like go from the homepage and if it's like a very convoluted process, then there's probably something going on like with indexing and crawling that needs to be done. So yeah, things like that I think are they're technical, but I think they're more like UX related than you think. But yeah, and or that or just creating so many pages and then they're not quality and then they just don't get indexed. So there's that too.
Yeah, and I think the next evolution is, or another evolution that SEO has taken form in the last couple of years is how much user experience does play a factor
Mhm.
um, in your SEO results, right? I mean, obviously, people talk about core vitals a lot, or at least they were. But I think user experience just goes a long way, and I think it was really interesting last year when the algorithm got leaked. These all the factors, right? No one knows how they're weighted, obviously, but for many years, Google had said things like GA UA metrics didn't matter, user engagement. We're not factoring that kind of stuff in. But then it got leaked that it is factored in somehow, right? We don't know how much or what it was weighted, but for people to still to this day say user experience doesn't matter when it comes to SEO, I think that's just not true. It's like factually not true. Obviously AI is a big factor in SEO and just people's day-to-day lives. What are some cool things that you're doing with ChatGPT that other people might want to look into?
Mm, I would say like using it for like your just general workflow at work. Like I know it's kind of redundant, but yeah, I like to use it a lot when it comes to like Google Sheets, like the data analysis part of my work. Using it to for instance, like if I need to create a formula in Google Sheets and I'm like, "Crap, like what is this formula? Like how do I make this? I usually just like ask ChatGPT like if I were to like do X and Y, like how do I get this X result? Like like generate it for you. So like things that just make your job easier. Like it doesn't need to be like how do I rank in Google? Like
Yeah.
those aren't the things you want to use ChatGPT for. Like some people use it for keyword research, and I'm not really a fan of that. But yeah, to me, like when it's very like technical, like I don't know how to put the word to it, but like I mean, AI is like ChatGPT, they're like language models, so it makes sense that they know how to write like some like code that you could use like in something like Google Sheets. So yeah, using stuff like that, I think is really been like really helpful because just the speed of how I can get things done is a lot faster, or just like yeah, things like that I think are super helpful.
Yeah, I think I do something similar. I'm not a spreadsheet wizard. I wish I was, but yeah, it's like a hack, right? It makes it so much faster for some of these tables and charts and stuff. So totally agree with you there. We'll wrap this thing up. What are some predictions you have for the rest of the year when it comes to SEO?
I feel like brand is going to be like still very important. Like you need to make sure you're not just like having good SEO for your site. You need to make sure you're posting on social media, like kind of making more of a presence there. Because it seems like when it comes to AI overviews, like a lot of these more notable brands are showing up. So like you really need to invest in like a lot of different areas for there. I guess also, and this is what I kind of seen like from my work, like local SEO and just like localization, making sure like I've seen a lot more pages that weren't traditionally more localized, like higher education, for example, like degrees. I've seen a lot more of those types of keywords become more like prominent in like local results. So I think it's important to like make sure you're like checking on your industry, like making sure like that your certain keywords are targeting the right locations. Maybe you need to check your site for like making sure you have like local landing pages if you're a business, things like that. But yeah, so partly just like a lot of focus on brand, making sure you like touching on local, not forgetting that either. But yeah, just being open to change, especially with AI, making sure you're up to date. Like, I know like I've seen more traffic from like Bing even. So like just making sure like your site can be indexed by like Bing. I think they have like a Bing index API. So things like that, I think could be very helpful. But yeah, just gotta stay up to date and just be prepared.
Love those tips, Ryan. Thank you so much for coming on. How can people connect with you? How can they find you?
Yeah. So the best place would be I'm on LinkedIn quite a lot. So yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, just my name, Ryan Collins, PhD. You can also search my name in Google. You'll also find me find me there. But yeah, and I just lastly, I've developed a website called After Your PhD, so you might see me through there. I also have a LinkedIn page for that website. I'm building out the newsletter, so it's been really exciting with that. I'm just kind of also keeps me busy a little bit on the weekends. But yeah, so thanks Shane for having me on. It was great talking about SEO. Yeah, so glad
Yeah,
we could have this chat.
we'll do it again, Ryan. Have a great weekend. Good luck with finishing that newsletter, and we'll talk soon.
Yeah, all right, later. Bye.